As a Patriots fan, I think it's time we talk about Bill Belichick and the possibility that he is holding the Patriots back. Hit the intro.
Perfect.
So who exactly is Bill Belichick? Bill Belichick has been the head coach of the New England Patriots for over 20 years. And during that time, Bill Belichick has become one of the greatest head coaches in NFL history. Over hundreds of wins, honestly. One of the winningest head coaches in NFL history, right up there with the likes of Vince Lombardi and Don Shula in NFL history. One of the NFL top 100 coaches. He made the list as a coach all time, a 3-time AP Coach of the Year winner, 6 Super Bowl championships as a head coach, 2 as an offensive coordinator for the New York Giants before then, 11 Super Bowl appearances total. Bill Belichick has an absolutely long and illustrious career as the head coach of the New England Patriots, and even beyond that point, has been a part of the NFL and its history for a super long time. And honestly, his resume speaks for itself. He has a very long history of success in winning, and honestly, this is why it's a hard conversation to have, but I think it is a conversation that we need to have as far as the future of the New England Patriots. So why am I even having this conversation? Why am I bringing this up and making an entire video about talking about Bill Belichick? And I think the real reason is the future of the New England Patriots, the present and the future of the New England Patriots. At the end of the day, the NFL is a bottom line wins and losses business, and if you haven't won or proven success in recent time, honestly, it just becomes a lot more questionable about the longevity of your future with an organization. That doesn't matter if you're Bill Belichick, if you're Jimmy Johnson from back in the day, if you're Andy Reid, if you're whoever. If you can't show sustained success, at least within the last few years, it becomes a lot harder and harder to keep vouching for you as far as keeping your present position. Bill Belichick is the head coach and the GM of this New England Patriots team. And again, like I mentioned earlier, has had a ton of success in those positions. However, these last few years have been a little bit lackluster in the post-Brady era, going 17-16, one playoff appearance with a playoff loss. This Patriots team has not won a playoff game since 2018 when Tom Brady was still under center. And on the GM side of things, Bill Belichick has been kind of here and there with the decisions he's made as a GM. Last season went absolutely bonkers in free agency, spending over $200 million, the biggest free agency spending spree that we've ever seen come out of Bill Belichick. And in my personal opinion, it was a pretty successful offseason, getting Matt Judon, who ended up becoming one of the Defensive Player of the Year candidates by the end of the season, was on an absolute tear as a pass rusher, adding a huge amount of quarterback pressure off the edge that the Patriots defense absolutely needed, adding guys like Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar into the receiving core, as well as Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith as well to help in the passing game. Hunter Henry, an absolutely huge success. Kendrick Bourne has shown some promise, but we're going to talk about a little bit more of the offense a little bit down the road. And then in the NFL draft following, they got their future of the franchise at quarterback in Mac Jones, a splash with Christian Barmore in the second round, as well as in the later rounds, picking up Ramondre Stevenson, a nice grinding back that was really successful during his first season in the NFL. And all of those moves culminated in a playoff appearance. Like I said, a playoff loss. However, I do think there is some things that we need to address about last season. While on paper it looks like there was some success, there are some questions and concerns that I have, and I think the rest of the Patriots nation that were really watching these games and really evaluating these games are fair to have questions and are fair to have some levels of scrutiny for the decision making on the part of Bill Belichick. Like I said, I watched every single game the Patriots played this past season, and there is some levels of scrutiny as far as the decision-making in general. Offensively, it just felt like this offense just never opened up enough to keep them aggressive and in games. At times, this Patriots offense was really predictable and really easy to game plan against, as they were a ground and pound run first team that never really opened up the playbook to allow their rookie quarterback that showed a ton of promise, was in the Offensive Rookie of the Year running, along with the eventual winner Jamar Chase, for the entire season. They never really opened up the passing game until they were behind in games, in my personal opinion, but that was just me watching games. Mac Jones showed that he had the ability to pass and make really good decisions. And obviously every rookie has those growing pains, are going to make mistakes, and especially a quarterback, one of the most scrutinized positions in football, he was liable to make some mistakes at some points. However, it just never felt like they took the training wheels off of Mac Jones until it was absolutely necessary. In some key situations, just electing to punt the ball rather than go for it on 4th down, or put the ball in the hands of somebody else rather than some of the better playmakers on this team. Mac Jones showed that he was a playmaker, a leader for this team this past season, and it just felt like Bill Belichick just never trusted the kid enough to put him in positions to really win games. He elected to put it in the hands of other people to try to make some plays rather than the guy who had been leading the team back into these comeback efforts or into these winning efforts. And honestly, I feel like there was just a lack of usage from some of the talented players that they had picked up. Nelson Agholor never really quite meshed into what the Patriots had on offense, but Kendrick Bourne showed a lot of promise as one of the few wide receivers on this team that could organically get open. Saw 55 targets, a few touchdowns, and they showed that they were really clicking between the two of them. Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne really showed that they had some chemistry. Hunter Henry was an absolutely great addition for this Patriots team, a huge red zone threat that just caught everything in the end zone. But Jonnu Smith never really felt like he was packaged into anything, wasn't really utilized correctly, and I feel like there's a lot more that they could have done with guys like Nelson Agholor and Jonnu Smith. At the end of the day, obviously they still have to get on the field and make plays, but it felt like guys like Kendrick Bourne, who were making plays, weren't seeing the ball as much as they possibly should have, right? Or guys like Jacoby Myers, who were still able to get open and play underneath, really utilized, but not quite the guy that they need to be. This Patriots offense, personal opinion, they still need a true outside number 1 wide receiver, and they just haven't really found that yet. The defense was absolutely the heartbeat and the soul of this team that helped take them all the way to the number 1 seed in the AFC at one point. And they were really aggressive, had a really strong pass rush, like I said. Matt Judon and even second-round pick Christian Barmore put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks, and then the bye week happened. Coming out of that bye week, the Patriots just honestly changed their entire identity. They went from being a very strong pass-rushing, quarterback, aggressive team that would force them to make mistakes and allow their secondary, like guys like J.C. Jackson and Jalen Mills, to capitalize on those mistakes. And they just started to not do that. They stopped doing what their strength was. They stopped doing what was working and got a lot more conservative, at times dropping guys like Matt Judon back into coverage and just trying to give these really complicated simulated pressure pass rush looks at quarterbacks. But veteran quarterbacks and good quarterbacks aren't really fazed by those things, and the Patriots started losing games out of that bye week. The Patriots' offensive identity, whenever they couldn't run the ball, became incredibly predictable. If they weren't already kind of predictable to begin with, without that lack of running game, you're forcing your quarterback into situations where the defense is already knowing he's going to pass. The Patriots just became a jumbled mess by the end of the season. They still managed to make the playoffs as a wild card, tumbling all the way from the number 1 seed into the wild card number 5 seed, if I'm not mistaken, and lost to a Buffalo Bills team that they couldn't make punt for 2 straight games. So after all of that, we head into this offseason where the Patriots don't necessarily have a ton of money, but they have enough money where they could possibly make some moves, maybe make some roster moves to open up some more cap space. And the Patriots just feel like they didn't really do anything. They kind of regressed. Their biggest splash signing most recently is Jabril Peppers, a former Cleveland Brown and New York Giant first-round pick that was really versatile in college out of Michigan, but he is now the 4th safety in a room that already has Devin McCourty, Kyle Duggar, and Adrian Phillips already inside of it. So there's a 4-safety look coming out on defense. A lot of the older veterans have now gone. Guys like Dante Hightower, Kyle Van Noy, and Jamie Collins are no longer with the team, so the linebackers that they do have are being forced to step up and make some plays, but we haven't really seen these guys play much over the past couple of seasons. And then on the defensive line, not much of a change there, but the pass rush absolutely needs to be there this upcoming season. Offensively, the Patriots traded away one of their better offensive linemen in Shaq Mason to free up cap space. They re-signed Trent Brown, which I liked, but losing Shaq Mason is a huge anchor piece in that running game that the Patriots are, if they want to try to establish the running game a lot more this season, then they're not going to be able to do that. They just didn't really feel like they made a lot of moves to improve this team. The biggest glaring hole is the lack of wide receiver additions. Honestly, there have been a number of receivers talked about or in trade rumors that just never really accumulated into anything. I understand like a limited cap situation, but it just doesn't feel like the Patriots were really putting in effort this offseason. I know the conservative approach of we don't like to spend a lot of money in free agency, but you disproved that last season by spending a ton of money in free agency. So the Patriots are in a kind of a weird spot. We also saw the Patriots lose offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels to the Las Vegas Raiders. And I had made a video during the season how I think McDaniels was holding back the Patriots, but seeing the moves that he's made with the Raiders, going out and getting one of the best wide receivers in the NFL for that offense in Davante Adams, I'm starting to think maybe Bill Belichick is the reason why this Patriots team just looks so predictable, conservative, and honestly just not intimidating. Post Brady-era, they're just not that team that walks into stadiums and people go, hey, we're playing the Patriots this week. Now it's just, hey, Patriots are coming to town. We got to get ready. We're playing a game. They just don't have that aura anymore. Bill Belichick doesn't have that anymore. And I think it's something that we need to be talking about. We need to be addressing, because this upcoming season, owner Robert Kraft in the owners meeting very recently said, hey, there needs to be some kind of production. We haven't won a playoff game in a few years. I'm expecting results this year. So I think it's very fair to say that Bill Belichick kind of on the hot seat. A lot of sustained success over the last 20 years, but the NFL is a what have you done for me lately league. And the Patriots haven't done so much. Again, last season, there were some shows of promise, some signs of promise, but didn't really culminate anything. And down the stretch, when it really mattered the most, in December and into the playoffs, the Patriots crumbled. They folded. They couldn't stop the Bills from picking up fourth downs. They weren't aggressive. They just weren't competing in the same way that we had seen them in the past. And there's a lot of changes and a lot of new faces. However, at the end of the day, the buck stops at the head coach and the GM, and Bill Belichick is the de facto head coach and GM. I think it's very fair that we need to be questioning some of the moves that he's made. The Patriots, if they want to be successful in a very stacked AFC where the rest of the conference got a ton better, they need to absolutely nail this draft. And another question is, who's calling plays? That's another thing. They brought back Joe Judge, and he might very well be the play caller, but no idea. No idea what's going to be happening on the offensive side of the football this upcoming season now that Josh McDaniels is gone. I had my grievances with him, but I'm just really not sure what the Patriots are bringing to the table this season. There wasn't a lot of moves made to make this team that much better. The Miami Dolphins within their own division got a lot better in my personal opinion. The Patriots, my personal opinion, are not looking like a playoff team right now in the AFC. I think Bill Belichick's still a great coach, but I feel like his hands are a little bit tied going into this season, and very well possibly he might not be here after this next season. It's going to be a really tough situation in New England. The potential end of an era, who knows? But it just feels like there's some tension in Foxborough. It feels like there could be a changing of the guard in Foxborough. And I feel like the conversations need to be had. What's happening with Bill Belichick? So thank you so much for watching this week's video. Feel free to, of course, like, comment, share, subscribe, and of course, get the bell on to know every single time I'm dropping a video. My name is Tristan Blake Rines, and I'm going to catch you in the next one. Adios.